Now we're going to move into the third session of the Green Challenges. Just a reminder to anybody who hasn't heard my spiel already, 25 Green Challenges were chosen across the 5 universities. 10 of those were chosen to present at this summer school. And the Green Challenges are challenges issued to the campus users in all 5 partner universities to develop solutions to improve sustainability at our universities, working to implement the United Nations SDGs. The 4 common themes are actions to support and enhance biodiversity, practices that bring a university closer to zero waste, reducing carbon footprint relative to transportation, and finally, reducing environmental footprint of catering. So each team, we have 4 teams this morning, and each team will have 7 minutes to present. I'll be timing you here, and after the 7 minutes, you'll have 7 minutes for questions and answers. So if anybody has a question, please enter it into the chat function, and Justine and Krista will help read out what those are. I'm just going to set my stopwatch, and just a reminder to everybody that this is being recorded. So we look forward to our first team, which is Eco-Calc. Eco-Calc is from Trinity. It is the team members are Killian Fogarty, Oisin McConway, and Emma Gallagher. And Eco-Calc is a website designed to help users keep track of and budget their carbon footprint produced by their commute to and from the university. So I will hand over to Oisin, and you can make your presentation, Oisin.
Fantastic, thank you, Michelle. We'd just like, before we start, just to take a quick second, if everyone could scan or enter the link above into their phone. We're just going to start with a quick poll, try to get everyone involved. And I'll move on quite quickly. I'm sure we're caught on time. So,
Oisin, could you copy and paste that into the chat link? That would probably help everybody. Thank you.
Okay, so we're just going to start, and obviously with the idea of the poll originally was to try and get a better understanding of how people use their carbon footprint and how they currently go to university. And essentially what we're trying to show is that there is a demand for this sort of product. Ideally, we would love to see everyone taking bikes and walking to campus. And this is just to show that there is potential for this type of software, this web application to make a real difference and empower and educate users to change their habits in relation to their campus commute. So I'll hand it over to Emma now. That was just a quick illustration that the demand is there, and just to get everyone engaged to begin with.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm so glad our poll worked, thankfully, so that's a good start. Basically, the first idea for Eco-Calc was to be able to try and encourage a more healthy and sustainable lifestyle whilst going into campus. We were responding to the Green Challenge of reducing the carbon footprint surrounding the travel to and from campus. So we wanted to help empower and educate the students, starting off with Trinity, but hopefully we get to expand further on. And we want to help everybody be able to really see what the effect their personal choices have and how they can try and change them by budgeting their output for the week. So team itself, we're starting off with Killian Fogarty. Killian's doing the website construction, and he's created what we're calling the carbon calculator. Myself, I'm acting as team leader, and I'm running most of the communications and content creation. And then Oisin McConway is doing budget management and overseeing all of the business communications. So this is our original timeline. We had initially projected that the website would not be quite as difficult to create. The main difficulty that we ran into was implementing the Google Maps distance matrix API. So this is kind of what we're using as the main body for our carbon calculator. But this distance matrix has been designed for server-side usage. So our progress was slowed quite a bit, trying to convert it to be more user-friendly and easier for like mobile versions as well. So we now have an updated timeline, and the progress that we've made so far, we are still very pleased with. So the website is fully functional and ready for traffic. And we've also been able to maintain quite a bit of connections throughout Trinity campus, and we have started our social media as well. So we're really hoping now to just boost traffic and get everybody in Trinity knowing more about us.
Thank you, Emma. So I'm just going to briefly run over, this was our original budget and how we envisioned using the €255 that we were originally allocated. And just the key thing to note here is that we originally had server hosting and API requests in the one bracket for the funding with website UI resources and the registration of the domain name itself categorized in other places. But we've been able to evolve this into a way that's an example that's probably more sufficient for how we're trying to tackle the project. We've broken up API requests and server hosting into separate areas, and we've been able to minimize the use of website resources, website UI resources by using open source materials that were available for free as well. So, and all the money that we've been able to minimize has been reallocated into our API requests funding bracket. That's where the majority of our funding is going to come from, or is going to be used rather. Of course, server hosting is necessary as well if you're going to run a website, and as well domain name registration was, we were able to minimize that by seeking an alternative provider for that domain name. So as I said, again, we've been trying to minimize funding in areas that weren't crucial to website success, that weren't crucial to website stability, with an effort of aiming to maximize how many API requests and the level of education and empowerment that we can provide to students by proxy through that then. In terms of our communications, we've been able to secure confirmation with TCDSU and with Trinity Green Campus for website promotion once we're at a level where the website is to the point where it can be promoted and can handle large volumes of traffic, which is something that we're quite confident that we're there at the minute, but we're just making some final checks just to make sure. We also have an Instagram at Eco-Calc, which is the core part of our communication strategy, and something that we have a lot of content prepared for in the background. Again, just wanted to get the name out there first, just to get everyone involved, and the content literally will be coming in a matter of hours. So that's something that we're very happy with. Emma's been working very hard on that. In terms of our impact, the current funding covers 20,000 emissions calculations with the Google Maps API that Emma mentioned earlier. We don't envision necessarily crossing this line, crossing this this maximum limit anytime soon, but it's something that we'd be delighted to surpass. And the major impact we have then through those emissions calculations is in the user empowerment that we aim to provide. The main idea of the website, the main impact that the website will have is by the users using the website, it allows them to then have a better understanding of their weekly carbon emissions, what the carbon emissions are, say from different areas on campus or different areas outside of campus. For example, we're aiming to increase functionality to St. James's Hospital as well, just to have an idea of what that emissions impact is. And then by having that information available, we believe and we're fairly sure that students will then make different choices in their behaviour in relation to their commutes. So once again, it's not a matter of whether or not we'll make an impact. We do firmly believe we will. It's just a matter of how much. And the Living Labs, we've tried to use project infographics on there to try and generate discussion in relation to whether we think our original timeline was too ambitious or not, which I think in hindsight probably was. And we've also got currently an open emissions data discussion as well in relation to using other databases of information for the emissions of other public transportation methods in our partner studies as well, which is open, and we'd be delighted to have some discussion on that. And finally, our scalability and replicability. We believe this is the main area we can succeed in, and the area that would allow us to work into our partner universities very quickly, essentially by allowing our source code to speak for itself, and then surround that source code that would be universal for all our universities with a localized strategy focusing on language and communication, and of course the localized emissions figures that I mentioned earlier via our Living Labs. And that's everything from us. Thank you very much. Of course, we'll open it up to questions, and I'm sure hopefully you'll have some. So thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much, Oisín and Emma. And if you'd like to stop sharing, we'll see if there are any questions. If anybody's questions, please enter them into the chat function. One question I have for you is, would it be possible to open this up to staff at some point?
Oh, absolutely. Essentially, what we plan to do is, with the functionality later in the summer, allow for user accounts. And with those accounts, it would just be simply a matter of categorization in terms of students and staff. Of course, the functionality is very much related to commutes. We would love to be able to open it up to research-based emissions or things along those lines, but that's certainly something we see further down the line. And at the moment, we're very much focusing on commutes, but again, that would definitely be open to staff 100%. And I mean, we encourage staff to use it once we're at the point where that categorization is possible.
Great, great. Justine, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, hi, first of all. I had a question because kind of about, I think, like the science or the research behind it, because I'm sure there's so much research about how to calculate emissions. And can you tell me a bit about the process? How did you choose like the approach, how you would actually calculate the footprint?
Yeah, of course. So I'm just going to say if Killian is there, I'd love for him to take it, but if he's not, I think he might have some technical problems. I believe the original idea was to take a baseline per CO2 per kilogram per kilometer value, and then essentially just multiply that value using the distance that we got from the distance matrix API. It's a fairly simplified method, but we believe it opens ourselves up to being able to essentially sort of gamify the approach later on. It was something that we talked about with our professor, our internal coordinator in Trinity, Professor Crowley, who talked about potentially having events during things like Green Week where we have inter-university competitions. And we believe by taking that sort of simplified approach at the beginning, it would allow for that to be expanded in a more efficient manner.
All right, thank you. And there's one question from Mary. Any issues with GDPR and tracking locations? I'm not sure what GDPR is, but maybe.
Yeah, GDPR is it's the legislation just surrounding like website traffic and keeping users' data. And we, at the minute, to be honest, we haven't done a massive analysis of that, but we don't believe there'll be any problems there, given that the information we're currently keeping is completely anonymous. We're currently not at the point where we'd be holding large amounts of user information long term. So we're not, there's a couple of parts of GDPR that mention that, users' information can only be kept if it's relevant and relevant to the operation of the website itself. And that's not something we currently think we'll have any issues with. Tracking location, again, it's something that is done specifically by the user themselves to calculate the distance. And we're not tracking that location outside of the original calculation, just so we don't see any problems there at all. Of course, Emma, if you have anything else to add on that.
No, I'm very much in the same mindset of Oisín. Most of the issue is that with GDPR is kind of tracking and keeping data without user knowledge. But like Oisín says, the way that we have the website set up is the user provides us with their start and end point in their journey. So at no point are we actually tracking their progress along their journey, which I think is a really crucial one, just to keep everybody's data safe and everybody knows we're not following them through Dublin.
So I have a question then in regards to the data that you could potentially gather, just for anonymized, if you like, so it wouldn't link up to whoever is using the platform. Would it be possible to use some of that data to be able to say, we know that X% of students coming to Trinity using this Eco-Calc app are taking the bus or taking the bike or whatever? Would it be possible to calculate the carbon footprint as a whole from that group, so then Trinity could use that in our carbon report?
Yeah.
You want to take that, Emma? Go ahead.
Sorry, Oisín. Yes, absolutely, Michelle. So our kind of long-term goal is to be able to have a really good overview of the college and help mostly in kind of marketing strategies for like more sustainable transport methods. So Trinity is hoping to increase their bike usage by 10%, and we want to be able to see what the actual numbers are to just be able to give a far better picture. Yeah. And also our long-term goal is we want to be able to create feasible goals for everyone to budget their carbon emissions too. And I think that will only really come once we see where people are coming from and what kind of options are available to them.
Very good. Okay, well, listen, thank you very much for your presentation. It's fascinating and I look forward to using it myself. We're going to move on to the next project, the next Green Campus project, which is Environmental Impact Label in the Canteen from Utrecht University. The team members for this project are Gergo Suto and Yuel Burle. So this project is designed to help people make low impact food choices by providing food labeling in their canteen. And making the best choice for the planet is not easy, but with such a labeling system in place, they believe the decision would be made easier for the customer. So Gergo, I am going to hand over to you if you'd like to share your screen.
Yes.
It's actually Joel who's going to present this, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think you can now see almost, sorry. Just getting the screen sharing right. You can now see the screen, I hope?
Yes, we can.
All right, phenomenal. Then I'll start presenting the Canteen labeling scheme project from Gergo and myself. And first of all, I'll actually ask you a question about what your considerations are when you're buying food in the canteen, in your own university canteen. Most people are looking at flavor and also price, of course. But for some people who are well informed on climate change impacts, they may also consider the sustainability of the food. So this constant climate math that we were doing when looking for our lunch is what drove me and my teammate to make this project, to create a food labeling project that would essentially help everyone know the climate impacts of their food. But what exactly is our project? So we are proposing a 3-tiered labeling system that essentially allows students and staff to compare the food choices at university canteens. So rather than shaming people, we wanted to A, educate those who did not know of the impacts of certain foods, and B, reduce cognitive dissonance in those that did know the impacts. And by making clear which meals are more sustainable, labeling is likely to reduce the demand of polluting foods by making people more conscious of external costs, while at the same time not really limiting people who don't like alternatives to eating highly polluting foods. So the goal is to be able to compare 2 dishes and provide the consumer with some form of saving estimation without having to complicate everything with some climate accounting. But now how would we decide what is 3 leaves and what is 2 leaves, or 1 leaf in this case? We, for our methodology, we decided to use the data by Pour and Nemecek, which is a monumental LCA of several different food categories, where they estimated the CO2 emissions of different foods per functional unit. So that's essentially what is usually consumed. A functional unit in this case is, for example, a liter or a kilogram, or in some cases, a serving, like in case of coffee or chocolate. And we're using this to identify distinctions between the different labels on a normal distribution curve. And we created cutoff points, in this case 3, to visualize essentially where those labels would come in. And ultimately, here we're dividing it exactly by 3, but ultimately we prefer more stringent labeling by using the 75th and 95th percentile as a cutoff point instead. All right, so that's how we get the label, but now how do we actually use this? So we would have 2 phases. We would have a pilot phase where we would start with dishes that are regularly prepared. We could pre-calculate the emissions or the impact of these dishes, and we would stick to the same kind of categories. So think of a sandwich stand, for example, and we would have that regularly going to see the exact results. And we would also have a label really near that price tag to be able to influence the consumers in this case. And this is all based on also research that we did and talking with experts on nudging, seeing what they wrote. We had someone doing extensive research on what the nudging behavior might change in student and staff behavior in the canteens at Utrecht University. And once this pilot phase is over, we would start the whole project phase, where we would have an opening event to educate people on how we did it, either during this event or during it with a poster. So now what would we do if we don't have pre-calculated numbers? So what we did was we created an Excel tool to essentially be able to just put in the weight of certain foods and tick some boxes, and then you would get your label as an output. And so what we would like to do with that, we would like to present that to a Green Office food group that is going to be coming out soon, to see if they would be willing to work on this. So it wouldn't have to be done by the caterer themselves. It would be a very simple tool. So I think ultimately it's not a big deal for both, but it could be nice to have that externally done. Now, lastly, I think one more thing to mention is that we're relying on this framework. It is something that is used by researchers to essentially show that the transparency of an entire food chain. So on the left, you can see that there are the impacts, for example, from farms that get put down through the processors and retailers, ultimately to consumers. And currently, while this side is developing further and we're getting more transparency from that, we are focusing on this last aspect to incentivize sustainable consumption, because we don't really have a lot of the uniform labels at the moment. So lastly, let's look at when this project will run. For that, we have a little timeline that essentially starts with the pilot, as we discussed, after which we would propose it to the Green Office Food Group, who would, with us, maybe organize the opening event. And if there is need for it, improve it and go beyond greenhouse gas emissions. So originally we were trying to make an index out of 3 different factors, but that was a bit too complex, and also we don't have the transparency for that. But that might be something that in the future could work out. And then lastly, just to quickly go over the costs, we have some costs for the pilot and the opening event, but ultimately the costs are very, very small. So these are just some pessimistic estimation. All right, so that's it. I hope you liked our project, and I hope you're just as enthusiastic as we are about putting leaves in our canteen and have plenty of questions for us. Thank you.
That is fantastic, Joel. Thank you so much, and it's really, really exciting. I'm just blown away by the creativity and innovation of all the green challenges that have been presented. So it's really exciting to see the interdisciplinarity of so many of the projects. One question I have for you is, could you explain what nudging behavior is for people who don't know what that is?
Right. Okay. So for nudging, it's essentially something that our label could do. So by putting down, just simply showing that this, for example, meat sandwich has more of an impact than another one, you would slightly nudge people by having a label on it that says this is less sustainable, this is more sustainable, that it would micro influence their choice, so to say. So that is ultimately what we hope to do. And yeah, I think it's just these very short choices, and especially with things where you have large amounts of data and you don't have time to really sit down and think about all of that. It's a quick choice. So I think that's more what nudging is about.
Okay, so you're trying to nudge people in the right direction. Great. Justine, do you have any questions?
Hi guys, well done. Well, being from Utrecht University, I know your project very well. So I also don't have like very many questions for you guys, but there is a question from Paula that asks if you see any issues with longevity, and she asks if she understood correctly, if it would be better to cooperate with the canteen rather than run the project in parallel.
Yeah, so for the first one, I think the longevity of it, I hope that at some point our project will become superfluous. I hope that there would be some kind of universal scheme that would not require a university themselves to set this label down. So yeah, as I said, with that framework, I hope that what we're doing right now is just that it's really the short-term thing to get this label across right now, as these other processes are working. And for the other one, I think that's a fair statement to not let it run in parallel, but really let it be taken up by the caterer. But I think that was our initial thought as well. But the reason we're not going with that now is because there is this food group that would maybe potentially be willing to work with this, and B, that if a caterer changes and a new caterer comes along, there might be a lot of work trying to get them accustomed to it, and trying to essentially do the whole calculations again and understand how something works that they maybe have never done before. So that was essentially our reasoning with taking it from in parallel from the university.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Utrecht University has a contracted caterer that comes in and has the contract. Yeah, okay.
And they've actually just changed. So then we just got a new caterer, and that's why I think it's also
Yeah, that makes sense. You would hold on to you would keep ownership of the material. We have a question from Georgia Dillon. Has the Canteen or any suppliers voiced concern about the labeling system in case it might impact their sales?
Yeah, so I think also something that I tried to show earlier with where we set that exact bar, we tried to make it as non-hostile as possible. So I think originally we even had it color coded, but that was also something that was not as favorable for them, because it really it discourages the sale for them, and that's of course not as nice. So that's why we're trying to stay somewhat neutral still, while still saying, you know, that this is more sustainable, not saying this is horrible, you shouldn't buy this, but more saying maybe consider buying this, you know. So that's I think how we keep the caterer on our good side.
Yeah, I noticed certainly in Ireland there's a lot of very dedicated meat eaters, and they're horrified if you tell them that they're eating the wrong thing.
Exactly. Those we have to deal with too.
What do you think were the biggest challenges that faced your team when putting this together?
I think it was definitely a big challenge to try to include all of the sustainability, because if you have all this data, so to say, on what really makes something sustainable, and we're essentially just making that choice based off of greenhouse gas emissions, I feel like that's for myself, I feel like that's a gross oversimplification, and I would much rather have all these other factors included. But that challenge is to have that trade-off between the specificity and being able to have a simple label in the end that communicates, essentially what the impacts are.
Yeah, very good. Does anybody have any other questions? I think we've covered everything in the chat. Yeah, okay. Well, in that case, I'll just say thank you once again very much for your presentation, and we look forward to seeing you at session number 4 tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so our next project that is up on the plate is from University of Barcelona, and this is called Planetary Health Diet at UB towards a more sustainable option. The team members are Andrea Rizzo, Ana Escobedo, Ana Moraguez, Ciro Sanguesa, and Lina Solarte. And the project is applying sustainable food criteria, for example, buying local, buying with less packaging, at the catering at UB to reduce carbon footprint of the food options. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Ana Moraguez and Andrea Rizzo. And you will have 7 minutes. So if you'd like to share your screen.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Andrea is going to share the screen, and I will start with the presentation. Thanks for all your presentations. It's been a very inspiring morning. So we'll present now our project, which is trying to promote a planetary health diet at the University of Barcelona, and also working with university canteens when trying to tackle a bit more the food environment as well in the university. So we'll start explaining a bit where this project comes from. This year, 2021, Barcelona is the World Sustainable Food Capital. And what we're trying to do with this project is to use the concept of planetary health diet. That is a concept that has been developed in order to emphasize the link between the health of people and health of the planet, and develop a campaign associated with a menu to spread awareness about the need to improve diets and transform the food system, and showing how the food system is central in order to tackle all the and achieve all the sustainable development goals, but particularly these 5 that you see down here. So what is the planetary health diet? The planetary health diet was developed by the EAT Foundation, and it was developed by a commission of experts funded by EAT, but also the EAT Lancet Commission. And what they are proposing is a diet based on evidence that is going to be able to maintain us within the planetary boundaries, but at the same time promote our health. So basically it is about reducing the consumption of animal products, eating more more plant-based proteins, and it's actually developing a very specific diet with specific grams for each type of category of foods, but it also can be adapted to different cultures and different places. This is particularly important because we're predicted that by 2050, around 45% of the population will be overweight. So we're facing incredible challenges, not only in terms of climate change of the food system and other environmental issues, but also in terms of our health. So this diet pulls these two things together. We've also been endorsed by EAT. We have close contact with them, and they are very excited about implementing this type of menu and diet within university canteens. So the objectives of the project is to ensure access to sustainable food in university canteens, also reduce food waste, working with the local community in terms of food production, so trying to introduce seasonal and proximity products, reduce the packaging of waste, but also is linked to evaluation and monitoring. So we will be evaluating the impact of introducing this type of menu and promoting this type of diets within university, and for that purpose, we're also in close contact with the city of Barcelona, which is conducting some evaluations related to the impact of taking this menu in terms of like how we're reducing probability of overweight, obesity, the number of how it's impacting CO2 emissions, and so on and so forth. Now, Andrea will talk you through the project phases.
Yeah, so these are the phases we intend to follow with the project. We are currently in the project preparation, but I would like to emphasize two in particular, the phase 4, since we are aware of the importance of making the project known to the university community. Our goal is to design a strategy that considers the needs of our target audience. It is important to know that the communication service will supervise and any dissemination on social networks on the university website. And in addition, they will include presentation of the project within the framework of a planned institutional video. On the phase 5, 2 pilot tests will be carried out in the faculties of economics and biology. And the idea will be to offer the menu created and all the other objectives surrounding this menu during the second week of October. Also, we want to establish mechanisms for evaluation and monitoring to ensure compliance with the proposed initiative to make the university's canteens more sustainable and healthy places. Since the catering service is not an issue that doesn't fall exclusively on us, we want to highlight some challenges encountered and offer possible solutions. First, the catering service in economics intend to reopen in September, so there would be no inconvenience to offer the menu in the cafeterias and the restaurants of the pilot test faculties. But in the case it remains closed, our second alternative is to offer the menu in digital format through the university app and encourage the lunchbox option. Other challenges have been to combat different types of prejudice. The first one, that the planetary health diet menu will be more expensive than the traditional menu. And the second one is that the healthy food is less tasty than a pizza, for example. In conversations with ELTE, we were told that in the countries where pilot tests were being conducted, the price didn't vary. And in developing the menu, a lot of effort has been put into offering healthy, sustainable, but also tasty alternatives. Regarding the results achieved, 4 aspects should be highlighted. The first one is the elaboration of the menu, which has been left to professionals in the field. Conversations with ELTE, who, as mentioned Anna before, we were very interested in the proposal and formally endorsed the project. Also, a third fundamental aspect achieved was to contact with the deans of the faculties of the economics and biology to find out if they accepted the proposal, and it has been very well received. And finally, when designing the dissemination campaign, we were interested in knowing what the students thought, because we are aware of the importance of the consumer and the difficulty of attracting the university public to consume our sustainable options. Therefore, we developed a focus group with 10 students in which we discussed limitations, needs, and potentials that they saw in relation of the proposal. Yeah, well, as you can see, the menu has been elaborated by the director of the Department of Nutrition of our university, Maria Izquierdo, and her team. Following the philosophy of the planetary health diet, 2 types of menu have been designed. One that keeps the structure of the traditional menu of our food pattern, which is first course, second course, and dessert, and a second type of menu, more trending, that is a single dish or bowl. It is important to note that there will be always a menu that is compatible with vegetarian and vegan diets, and all this with a limited daily offer of dishes to reduce possible waste at the end of the service. For example, on Thursday, in line with the culinary tradition of our restaurants in our country, paella will be offered. In the traditional menu option will be sea and mountain, and in the vegan option, a rice and with vegetable and nuts. And we have great expectations about the project in the context of Barcelona as the World Capital of Sustainable Urban Food 2021, with the participation of our university. The main goal we hope to achieve is to promote a diet that is optimal for both human health, but also for the health of the planet. We truly believe that the project can contribute to meeting the Sustainable Development Goals and making real change towards sustainability. Also, we believe that the Planetary health diet project at the University of Barcelona can be a great pilot to apply and test the EAT-Lancet criteria in the cultural context of the Mediterranean diet. And if it works, and considering EAT-Lancet endorses the project, we believe that the planetary health diet at the university canteens concept can be replicated and launched globally, and all of this creating networks and building a community aware about all of this. So thank you very much for hearing about our project, and we would be happy to take any questions you may have.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Anna and Andrea. I might hand over to Justine. Justine, do you have any questions for the team?
Hi, yeah, I was wondering what your timeline is, kind of, if maybe I missed it, but do you have like a timeline of when you're going to start, or have you already started the communicating and the actual promoting of the project?
Andrea, I don't know if you want to respond to that, or should I?
I'm having problems to not sharing.
Yeah, I'll go ahead because we're pressed with time. So we're conducting a pilot the week of in the middle of October, the week of the 14th of October, I think. The 16th of October starts that week. So all that week, at least these 2 canteens and these 2 faculties will have a menu. So the communication will start before in September, and mostly in the month of October. October is quite an important month here in Barcelona, because it's when is the meeting of the Milan Food Policy Pact is happening. It's the World Food Day, and there's going to be many activities going on. So we're gonna put like a lot of weight beyond that, behind that in terms of communication. And we will also be running the evaluation of the pilot during that time. So that's kind of like a bit when most of the work will be conducted.
Sorry, may I add? The project has been endorsed by the University of Barcelona, and the responsible of we will have something that is University of Barcelona Sustainable and University of Barcelona Healthy, and they are promoting that. That means that part of the promotion and the communication, it's organized by the own university. So they will be working on that in September, and the idea is to launch the initiative at the same time as Ana Moragas was saying. But it's not just us that are organizing all that, but the project is being supported by the university as a whole.
That's great news, Anna. Thank you for that. And Krista, do you have any questions for the team? I know is Krista Kovacs there?
Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, yes. Sorry. Yeah, you mentioned that the university supports or will support your project. Was it easy to get the support, or or was it hard to convince them?
We are on the way. I had a meeting on Monday. In fact, within the UNI-ECO, it has been so useful, the UNI-ECO project, because we had a supervisor in the development of our project, and this supervisor is the responsible of University of Barcelona ELTE. She is in charge of supervising menus. So as far as the University of Barcelona selected our project within the UNI-ECO process, now it has passed some corporative responsibility commissions and sustainable commission, and we are moving, scaling up the project. So the idea is that it has also passed in the 2 faculties, and this person is in dialogue with the catering company, which is of course so important. They have accepted in principle to develop that for a week, and of course we will need to have evaluation of all that. So of course this is not easy, and it's only limited for the moment to 1 week. But I think that this is already important that we move the project within the university governance structures, and we are now rather up. The next step will be the government body, but this will be done in September. Very good.
Just to add briefly to what Anna was saying, Christina, I think one of the things that is very important from this project is that it has this UNI-ECO impetus, and it also has like the buy-in and the impetus from the students, the academics, and also the staff from the university. So we have been kind of like quite diverse here, and it also is evidence-based, which I think is very important within a university. So we're really pushing for an evidence-based project which has monitoring, but it also has like specific activities that people can see how in real life they can do something like quite active. So I think it is difficult to change caterings, as we all know. It's kind of like what a complicated thing within university, but there's a lot of willingness, and I think we're finding the ways to build up this transition and starting from these pilots and testing things and building up all this willingness and commitment from the university, but also with support from key institutions such as the City of Barcelona, but also the Lancet Commission and so on, and Europe, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Great. So that's all we have time for. Now, there is one question that you guys might want to respond to in the chat function from Maria Esparza. So you could type back a response to that if you wish, but we're going to move on, and thank you very much for this very colourful, very wonderful presentation. So next we're moving on to the project from ELTE, which is called Colourful Dormitory, and the team members are Dorina Kozma, Victoria Mudra, Alex Barabas, Peter Gal, Huang Nguyen Khan, Akos Hunyadi, Gabriela Mudra, and Dominic Toth. And this project is about engaging students and staff in the renovation of ELTE's native herb garden and biodiversity improvements to their bee pasture, including the hand removal of ragwort and noxious weed. So I will hand over to Dorina for the presentation on this. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. So while I'm sharing the screen, I just would like to quickly apologize for my appearance because I'm at work working with watermelons and things like that. But actually that's good because it kind of represents what I look like during the project, and you will see why in a second. Okay, I hope it's working. It should be. Yeah. So this is one of the challenges from ELTE, the university in Budapest. And it's called Colourful Dormitory, refreshing the garden of the Architecture Dormitory. So basically, we were gardening a lot. And this fits into the category of enhancing biodiversity. And we started locally at this one dormitory that you can see the address for. And we are trying to, and we will definitely do it in other dormitories and campuses. But this was the first place to start, and the first action was done between the 25th and 27th of June, and there was a little bit something extra on the 15th of July, and we still have things to do, but let's see our goals and then you will get what it's all about. So the first one is establishing a bee pasture and a herb garden. This is mostly done. We still have to plant some flowers, but it's kind of Okay, already. Then cleaning and organizing the composting area in the garden. This is completely done and it looks amazing. You will see pictures soon. We also installed a barrel for rainwater to collect it and use it later for watering plants and everything. And then you can see the next two that are in green. These are still in progress and we're going to do them in the next following days, probably. Planting jasmine shrubs to filter noise and pollution from the streets, and cleaning the gravel plots of ragweed, which was one of our biggest projects, but we didn't really have enough volunteers to do it, but we will do it soon, hopefully. Okay, and now let's see the planning part, how we planned it. On the left side, you can see the project plan, the cover of the project plan that I did with Balint, and then the other picture is a header for our Facebook event, because we created a Facebook event for it to try to reach as many people as possible to volunteer, because we needed a lot of people to execute all these things. Yes, and actually there were 10 participants in total, which is not a lot, but we could still do a lot of stuff with these people. The volunteers were mostly from our voluntary organization for sustainability. This is ELTE, Together for Environmental Consciousness, and there were also some residents from the dormitories. And they could register through a Google form that I made, so it was all clear for everyone, and I knew when people are coming and things like that, so it was pretty well organized, I would say. And then here is a blueprint of the dormitory and its garden, and I kind of pinpointed the areas that we worked on. So maybe let's start with the composting area. This was one of the biggest things that we had to do. This is what it looked like before. It's pretty messy. And here it is during the project and after. So it's pretty cleared up. We have the water barrel as well. And the composters were filtered and we used it up for the other thing that I will show you in a second. So we could use it locally, and it was very great that we didn't have to transport anything anywhere. We could use these on the site of the garden. And then just a quick view of the gathering area that we made out of these pallets that we had. It's basically just a table and some benches for the students to sit outside in the garden, nature. And then one of the biggest projects is the herb garden. If it will load. Okay, yes. And so first, there was an unboxing phase because the raised beds arrived and we had to build them up, and then we filled them, prepared them with, as I said, sorry for the noise, I hope it's not too noisy. So we filled them up with branches and the humus from the compost that we had locally there. It was very nice to use those things up. Then here's me planting and watering the herbs that we put into the raised beds. Very green. And here's the final product. There's a basil plant, I think, yes. And now it looks even bigger. I didn't put a picture here with the current state, but I will put a link later in the chat where you can see every picture from the project. And the last one is the bee pasture that is still a work in progress. As you can see, we only have this little house for the birds to eat. And I planted like 3 little flowers that we had, but the others are still coming in. So yeah, it's still a work in progress, just like the jasmine shrub. So we have some planting to do, but most of it has been done already with the help of the 10 volunteers. So that is all, and thank you for your attention. Here you can see some of our social media, and I will link them in the chat as well. Thank you.
That's great, Dorina. Thank you so much for that presentation. It's very colourful. can I ask you who's going to use the herbs and who's going to tend them and who's going to use them?
Yes, so right now they get watered in a couple of days, a week. They don't have to be watered every day, fortunately, but now they are getting watered. And when the residents move back in September, they can use it for cooking and anything. So everybody can use it who lives there.
Great. And how will you publicize that? How will you let people know that the herb garden is there and the gathering area is there and all that?
Fortunately, we have a Facebook group for the dormitory where everything is posted, every information. So we will probably post it in the beginning of September.
Great. If anybody has any questions, please enter them into the chat. I will ask Justine if you have any questions.
Hi, yeah, I was wondering, because you are creating the area now, right, and working on it. But I was curious if you have any plans on when the like what happens with the project when it's finished, when the plants are planted, and when the area is there for it to use. Do you have any plans how to use the space?
Yeah, we kind of freed up a lot of space around the composting area because as you could see, it was kind of messy, but now it's all cleared up. So there we don't know yet, but something will happen there. And the flower bee pasture area will hopefully be used by bees and other bugs and insects. And the gathering area, they could use it, the herbs they can harvest and use. And probably there will be even more things going on. And we would like to do something similar in the other dormitories, gardens, and maybe in the campuses of the university as well. But if you have any ideas, you can totally share, and we are open to suggestions.
Yeah, I was thinking it might be really cool to host some events there as well for the students to kind of involve them more in the process and also teach them a bit more about the sustainability of it. Maybe that's a really good opportunity to take when you have that space.
Thank you. We'll definitely do that.
That's a great idea. Elodie asks, did you face any problem with university authorities to do this work instead of their staff?
A little bit. We just had to tell them what we are planning to do. Mm-hmm. But they were happy because we did it with volunteers. So it was free in a way, and some of the residents or other residents from other dormitories did it, and from our organization as well. But yeah, we have to let them know what we are doing and how we imagine it. And also, right now, nobody lives in the dormitory because now only 2 bigger ones are open because of the pandemic and everything. So it was okay that we could go around the building and do things. Mm-hmm. And we ordered the plants and tools and everything, and they could get it from the people who delivered it. Yeah. So yeah, we had to talk to them. That's definitely true. But they were supporting mostly.
Very good. And so who's going to maintain this area as time goes on? Like at some point you will leave university and other people who were involved. So how are you going to make sure that this gets maintained year after year after year?
Yeah, so because we have the organization, the ELTE Together for Environmental Consciousness, I am one of the coordinators for this now. Mm-hmm. And we are trying to keep it alive for the future with new people, and we are refreshing the group, the voluntary group. So we hope that they are going to continue doing it.
Very good. And Krista, do you have any questions for Dorina?
Yes, actually, I have one question. Since ELTE has several other dormitories which also have gardens, do you have any plan or vision to implement your project in other dormitory gardens as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think it could work in basically all gardens in the dormitories. There are already some things going on. For example, in the previous semester, I was in the ELTE dormitory, and there's already a garden there. And one of the volunteers is kind of working on it. There are raised beds there as well, and tomato plants and things like that. So it's already in progress, and we installed composting there as well in March or April, around that time. So things are already in motion, but yeah, I think we could do it even more in all the gardens of dormitories.
And I bet people will be inspired to do it more in other areas. And with regard to the composting, Dorina, can students bring their food waste down to those composters, or?
It's even easier because we do it on every floor of the building in the kitchens.
Okay.
There are like these bins that, you know, it's closed, but you can open it with your foot.
Yeah.
And they put it in there, and we bring it down every 2 days or so to the big composters garden. So it's working pretty well.
That's great. And do you have enough capacity? It seemed like there was just one composter there. Do you have more than one?
Yeah, there are more.
Okay.
I just couldn't show it in the picture.
Okay, very good. If there's no other questions, I think we will say thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a lovely presentation, and we look forward to just you joining us for session 4 tomorrow. So that's it for the Green Challenges. We've seen all 10 of them, and the next session we will have on the Green Challenges will be tomorrow afternoon, and that will be for the members of the teams to come together and learn from each other. So Gaia has put a note into our chat here. The next session is a meeting, not a webinar. So it's a different link. So please make sure that you exit the current session and come back in. I will hand over to Paula for any last announcements.
Thanks very much, Michelle, and thanks to all our presenters in the Green Challenges session. We've now heard from all 10 projects, and I'm awed. They're just great, very different projects, and from across all the universities, just really super. So really look forward to the session that Michelle mentioned tomorrow, which is the 4th session in the Green Challenges series, and that's particularly for the team members, not just the ones who presented today, but team members of any of the Green Challenges projects, and there's 25 of those going on across the universities. So Green Challenge team members, or if you know your Green Challenge team, other team members, please encourage them to come along for that session tomorrow. I think it'll be very valuable for us to hear your feedback on it and how it's been going for you. And thanks to Gaia and Michelle for reminding you that the next session is meeting session. So we'll exit here, have a little break, and see you back at 10:55 for our Tackling Community Change session. Thanks very much.